She arrived early at the conference. Not to confront him. Not to beg. But what her billionaire ex did next would change everything. 2 days after Christmas, the city still smelled like pine and cold air, the kind that lingered after carols had faded and decorations were coming down. The conference center stood tall and quiet, glass walls catching the pale morning light. Inside, the elite business summit was still waking up. Staff moved softly. Coffee machines hummed. Name badges lay neatly aligned like soldiers waiting for orders. She walked in alone. Her steps were unhurried. Her coat was simple, well-tailored, nothing loud. Her face carried the calm of someone who had cried enough tears in private and finally reached the other side of them. She checked in, nodded politely, and took a seat near the back of the hall, long before the crowd arrived. No one recognized her yet. And that was fine. She had not seen him since the breakup. Not since life had split them apart in ways neither of them could fully explain without sounding bitter or weak. Back then, he was just a driven boy with restless eyes and impossible dreams. Now, he was a billionaire CEO, the keynote speaker. His name printed boldly on banners that hung from the ceiling. People whispered his story with admiration. Self-made. Visionary. Relentless. They didn't know the whole truth. Around her, the hall slowly filled. Executives in tailored suits. Assistants tapping phones. Investors greeting one another with loud confidence. Everyone expected drama if she showed up. Tears. Confrontation. Maybe a scene. That was the story people liked to tell about women who got left behind. But she looked peaceful. Grounded. Almost free. From backstage, he arrived surrounded by security and praise. Laughter followed him like an echo. He adjusted his cufflinks, smiling easily, unaware that fate had already seated itself quietly in the room. When his eyes finally scanned the hall, they landed on her. For half a second, his breath caught. Old memories rushed in without permission. Secondary school corridors. Shared notebooks. Laughing over cheap snacks. Promises whispered under streetlights. They had loved each other long before the money. Long before the titles. Long before the world taught them how fragile love could be under pressure. He thought seeing her would reopen wounds. What he didn't expect was how steady she looked. But what she didn't know was this. His confidence that morning was brittle. Something was already off. A deal pending. A partner impatient. A decision waiting to be made. And destiny, as always, had perfect timing. Someone else was listening. As the opening session began, applause filled the hall. He took the stage, commanding attention the way billionaires do, with polished words and practiced charm. She listened, hands folded, heart steady. She wasn't there for him anymore. She was there because life had a strange way of circling back, asking quiet questions. Before we dive deeper into the story of fate, secrets, and unexpected love, tell me, where are you watching from today? Drop your location in the comments and type, "I'm with Mr. Evidence." If this moment already has you curious, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss what's coming next. Mr. Evidence Stories is on a journey to 1K, and your support truly matters. On stage, he spoke about growth and resilience. About lessons learned the hard way. The audience leaned in. But every so often, his eyes drifted back to her. To the woman who knew him before any of this was real. This moment would change everything. She remembered the nights she stayed up helping him rehearse pitches that no one believed in yet. The way she believed when others laughed. How love sometimes looks like patience, not applause. It's okay to feel that ache, she reminded herself. You've got this. A light joke slipped through her thoughts, soft and familiar. Remember when Aunt Mabel tried to bake cookies at midnight and set off the smoke alarm? Even chaos could be funny when love was still alive. But destiny wasn't done with her yet. As the session transitioned toward questions, tension thickened. He adjusted his stance, ready to assert authority, unaware that a single careless move, aimed at someone else entirely, was about to set everything in motion. And she sat there, calm as ever, the quiet constant from the beginning, carrying a truth the room wasn't ready for yet. They loved each other long before the money. The applause faded, and the conference shifted into its most dangerous phase, the unscripted part. Questions, negotiations, live decisions. The kind that reveal who someone truly is when control slips. He was still standing on stage when it happened. A junior executive from a partner firm stood to speak. Young, nervous, smart enough to challenge a projection on the screen. It wasn't an attack, just a clarification request, delivered politely. The room waited. And he smiled. But the smile didn't reach his eyes. He brushed it off at first, deflecting with confidence. Then came the second sentence. A careless remark, sharp with ego. The kind of comment powerful men sometimes make when they forget they are being watched. You should probably understand the numbers before questioning strategy, he said lightly. Too lightly. The room stiffened. Laughter didn't follow. Instead, chairs creaked. Pens paused. Someone coughed. A senior partner glanced down at his tablet, suddenly very interested in something else. The junior executive's face flushed, embarrassment mixing with disbelief. But what he didn't know was this. 2 key investors had been backing that junior executive's division, and they did not appreciate public humiliation. This moment would change everything. He realized it too late. He saw it in the silence, in the way eyes stopped admiring and started calculating. His tone shifted, trying to recover, but the damage had already landed. Power, once misused, leaves fingerprints. Someone else was listening. Whispers rippled across the room, subtle but deadly. Deals don't collapse loudly. They retreat quietly. Phones slid into hands under tables. Assistants leaned closer to their bosses. A few smiles disappeared. His credibility wavered. And for the first time that morning he felt exposed. From her seat near the back she saw it clearly. The mistake. The ripple. The fragile moment when pride costs more than money. She felt the old ache rise. Not romantic, not bitter, just familiar concern. He had always struggled with this part. Knowing when to stop. Destiny wasn't done with her yet. She could have stayed silent. Everyone would have understood. After all, she owed him nothing now. That chapter was closed. Or so it was supposed to be. But she leaned forward. Quietly. She didn't stand. She didn't announce herself. She passed a note to an assistant she recognized from years ago. A calm suggestion. A reframing angle. A way to recover the conversation without making the junior executive smaller. No drama. No spotlight. Just clarity. The assistant hesitated, then moved. A few seconds later, the moderator redirected the discussion, crediting the junior executive's insight, opening space for collaboration instead of dominance. The tension softened. The room breathed again. He noticed. Not immediately, but then his eyes flicked toward the back, searching. And there she was. Watching, steady. Not smiling. Not angry. Just present. Confusion washed over him. Why would she help him now? She had every reason not to. History alone gave her permission to turn away. Yet she stepped in like she always had, from the shadows, when things were about to fall apart. This moment would change everything. Just not in the way the room expected. The conference moved on, but something fundamental had shifted. A partner who had leaned back now leaned forward again. An investor who had been cold scribbled a note. The crisis didn't disappear, but it stabilized. Barely. He swallowed hard and continued, slower this time. More measured. The arrogance dulled by awareness. But inside, his thoughts were racing. She was there from the beginning. Even now. Memories resurfaced without invitation. The way she used to pause him mid-sentence and say, "Listen again, you're pushing too hard." The nights she helped him rewrite emails that sounded too sharp. The arguments she softened before they became battles. "You've got this," she used to say. "It's okay to feel the pressure." And here she was again, offering quiet rescue when no one else would. A light thought crossed her mind, easing the tension. Remember when he tried to microwave foil in secondary school and insisted it would be fine? Some lessons take longer to learn. As the session ended, applause returned. But it was thinner, more cautious. He stepped off stage, heart pounding. People approached him with polite smiles, yet something was different. Respect now came with distance. But she stayed seated, waiting, because she knew something else he didn't yet realize. This wasn't about the conference. This wasn't about the mistake. It was about who he became when power tested him, and who he still was underneath it all. And she, somehow, was still standing at the edge of his story. He stood just off stage as the crowd dissolved into smaller conversations, nodding, shaking hands, pretending he was still fully present. But his mind wasn't there anymore. It was back in the room, fixed on the quiet space near the back where she had been sitting. She was still there. Not rushing. Not avoiding him. Simply gathering her things with the same calm she had carried all morning. This moment would change everything. He hesitated. Powerful men are rarely uncertain about when to move, but this time his feet felt heavy. When he finally walked toward her, the noise around them faded, as if the years themselves were holding their breath. "It's been a long time," he said. She looked up, surprised but not startled. Her smile was soft, familiar, edged with something tender and sad. "It has." For a second, neither of them spoke. Silence filled the space where anger could have lived, but didn't. Someone else was listening, their younger selves, perhaps, wondering how life had twisted so far from the plans they once whispered under classroom desks. They had met in secondary school, back when his shoes were worn thin and her notebooks were always filled with little sketches of the future. Back when success was a dream, not a headline. They studied together, failed together, dreamed loudly, foolishly, beautifully. She remembered the day he told her he would be great someday, his voice shaking with hope. She believed him without question, loved him before there were assistants, before schedules, before the world demanded more than two people could sometimes give. She didn't love the billionaire. She loved the boy before he became one. But what she didn't know was this: he had never stopped measuring his life against that version of himself. Every deal, every milestone, every lonely hotel room. The breakup had not been betrayal, not hatred, no dramatic explosion, just pressure. Growth that pulled in different directions. Timing that refused to cooperate. Misunderstandings that grew teeth when left unspoken. Life happened. "You didn't have to step in back there," he said quietly. "You could have watched it burn." She shrugged gently. Old habits. Destiny wasn't done with her yet. He exhaled, something in him loosening. "I honestly thought, after everything, you wouldn't care anymore." Her voice softened. "I stopped being your partner. I never stopped being human." That landed harder than any accusation could have. The hallway around them buzzed with voices, but he barely heard them. He saw only her. The woman who knew his worst instincts and still chose kindness. The woman who had just saved him without asking for credit. Remember when Uncle Ben tried to fix the generator without reading the manual and nearly blacked out the whole street? She almost laughed at the thought. Some people learn through sparks. "I didn't know how to reach you back then," he admitted. "I thought success would fix everything." "It doesn't," she said gently. "It just makes the gaps louder." This moment would change everything, because it wasn't about getting back together. It was about seeing each other clearly for the first time in years. Old feelings stirred, quietly, painfully. Not fireworks. Embers. The kind that don't burn, but warm. He felt them in his chest, steady and aching. Gratitude mixed with regret. "You always showed up," he said. "Even when I didn't deserve it." She met his eyes. "You've got this. You always did. I just helped you remember." Someone else was listening, the version of him that once believed love was enough, before fear taught him otherwise. Around them, the conference moved toward lunch. People passed by, unaware that something sacred was unfolding in the margins. No grand declarations. Just truth shared honestly at last. She adjusted her bag strap. "I should go." He nodded, slower than necessary. "Thank you. For today." She paused, then added softly, "Take care of how you speak to people. Power doesn't protect you from yourself. He watched her walk away, feeling something shift deep inside. Not ownership. Not entitlement. Respect. She had come early to the conference, but she hadn't come for him. She had come because kindness was still part of who she was. And he realized, standing there alone, that the biggest thing he lost wasn't her presence. It was the version of himself she had always believed in. He stayed where she left him, long after her footsteps disappeared into the steady rhythm of the hallway. Conversations flowed around him, deals resumed, schedules moved forward, but he didn't. Something had cracked open, and it refused to close quietly. This moment would change everything. He returned to the lounge area meant for speakers, poured water he didn't drink, and stared at his reflection in the glass. The face looking back at him carried success, yes, but also a fatigue he could no longer ignore. That was when one of his senior advisors approached, voice low, careful. "She's still around," the advisor said. "You know, the one who helped earlier." He nodded. "I know." The advisor hesitated, then continued. "There's something you should probably understand." But what he didn't know was this: the truth had been circling him for years, waiting for the right moment to land. The advisor spoke slowly, like someone handling something fragile. He reminded him of the early days, the meetings that had gone surprisingly well, the introductions that seemed like luck at the time, the investor who took a chance when no one else would. "She made those calls," the advisor said. "Not publicly. Never took credit. She asked me not to tell you back then." The words hit harder than any public failure. Someone else was listening, the past version of himself, replaying moments with new clarity. That investor who believed in the vision. That partner who suddenly softened during negotiations. The bridge loans that appeared just when things were about to collapse. Advice, connections, sacrifices. Her fingerprints were everywhere. He sat down slowly. He remembered the nights she stayed awake while he slept, drafting emails, researching quietly, offering suggestions he brushed off as encouragement rather than strategy. He had thought her support was emotional. He hadn't realized how structural it was. Destiny wasn't done with him yet. No press release announced this truth. No boardroom showdown followed. There was no loud takedown, no dramatic reversal of power. Just a quiet realization settling in his chest like weight. He hadn't built alone. He had been carried longer than he ever acknowledged. A memory surfaced, him pacing nervously before his first major pitch, her voice steady on the phone saying, "You're ready. Even if they say no, you'll survive." He smiled faintly. Remember when Dad tried to assemble that bookshelf without instructions and insisted confidence was enough? Some things need guidance. This moment would change everything, because it reframed his entire life. He saw how much he had lost, not when she walked away, but when he stopped listening. The pressure, the growth, the misunderstandings, they hadn't just pulled them apart. They had taught him to mistake independence for isolation. He found her later near the exit, waiting for a ride. The afternoon light softened the space between them. "There's something I need to say," he began. She looked up, attentive, calm. "I didn't know," he admitted. "About the calls. The connections. The way you protected things without asking for credit." She considered him for a moment, then shrugged gently. "You were already carrying enough. I didn't want to add weight." That humility undid him. The emotional climax didn't arrive as tears or apologies. It arrived as understanding. Clear. Heavy. Undeniable. The biggest mistake of his life wasn't the comment on stage. It wasn't the conference misstep. It was losing her, slowly, quietly, while believing success could replace presence. "I thought I lost you because I failed," he said. "Now I see I lost you because I stopped seeing you." She met his gaze, kind but firm. "It's okay to learn late. What matters is what you do with it." "You've got this," her eyes seemed to say. "It's okay to feel the weight now." She was there from the beginning. And she never stopped being. He nodded, absorbing the truth without trying to bargain with it. No promises. No rewriting history. Just gratitude where blindness once lived. As she turned to leave, he didn't stop her. Respect sometimes looks like letting someone walk forward without pulling them back. And standing there, he finally understood that power doesn't come from being the loudest voice in the room. It comes from knowing who stood with you when there was no room at all. He watched her turn and walk toward the exit, her steps unhurried, her shoulders relaxed, as if she had just set down a weight she no longer needed to carry. The conference hall behind them buzzed again with the normal noise of ambition. Networking, laughter, the clink of cups, but something essential had already concluded. This moment would change everything. The conference officially wrapped an hour later. Applause rose, polite and professional. People exchanged cards and promises they might or might not keep. Schedules were adjusted. Flights were booked. Life continued forward as it always does. There was no dramatic reunion. No sudden rush toward each other. No public confession. No bargaining with the past. He stood among his peers, answering questions with a quieter confidence than before. His voice carried less force, more thought. When people congratulated him, he thanked them without the old hunger. When they praised his power, he nodded, but didn't lean into it. Someone else was listening, the man he was becoming. Across the glass doors, she stepped outside into the cool afternoon air. The city moved around her, unaware of the quiet victory that had just taken place. Cars passed. A street vendor laughed too loudly. Somewhere, a radio played a half-forgotten Christmas tune, still lingering 2 days late. She inhaled deeply. She didn't feel empty. She felt complete. But what she didn't know was this. Inside that building, he was replaying every moment where he had mistaken her patience for permanence. Every time he assumed she would always be there, regardless of how far he drifted. Destiny wasn't done with him yet, but it had already finished with her lesson. A colleague clapped him on the shoulder. Great recovery earlier, they said. Could have gone sideways. He nodded. I know. Remember when Grandpa used to say, if you break it with pride, you'll fix it with humility? The phrase echoed somewhere deep in him now. Outside, she checked her phone. A ride was on the way. She smiled at a message from an old friend asking how the day went. She typed back, simple, clear, free. This moment would change everything. Not because love returned, but because it transformed. She had loved deeply, lost honestly, and grown quietly. Inside, he finally allowed himself to sit with the truth. Love remembered is powerful. Love exploited is hollow. And love respected, even after it ends, becomes something sacred. He didn't chase her. That was the change. He watched through the glass as she stepped into the street, blending into the city that had shaped them both. No bitterness twisted his chest, just gratitude, and a resolve to do better, even if better no longer included her. You've got this, he told himself. It's okay to feel the weight. That's how you know you're alive. She didn't look back. Not because she was angry. Not because she was cold. But because she was whole. And as the doors closed behind her, the final truth settled gently, firmly, forever. She didn't come early to reclaim him. She came early to prove she never lost herself. Sometimes the greatest comeback isn't winning someone back. It's walking away with your dignity intact. This story reminds us that love doesn't disappear just because circumstances change, and growth doesn't always need an audience. It's okay to choose kindness without expectation. It's okay to forgive without returning. And it's okay to move forward whole. If this story touched you, like the video, subscribe to the channel, share it with someone who needs this reminder, and comment what lesson stood out to you most. Your voice matters, and you're not alone on this journey.